Hi, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Amber with Whole Self Emergence, Release and Restore Yoga. And today I'm going to talk about two things. So first I'm going to talk about the two major stresses we come up against, good stress and bad stress, or better known as eustress and de-stress. And then also our body's natural reaction to both types of stress. We go into a green light reflex or a red light reflex with either of these stressors. So eustress is our good stress. Good stress meaning that it's a stress that makes us feel excited. It makes us feel like we want to take positive action. It's a stress that motivates us and makes us feel like we have a purpose and something we need to get done. De-stress is the opposite of this. De-stress causes anxiety, causes stress. It demotivates us and puts us in that fight, flight, or freeze state of mind, and just causes anxiety and fear. And we have two major reflexes to either one of these stresses. So for eustress, our body goes into a green light reflex. So our green light reflex is where our back muscles contract, and we usually push out our stomach a little bit, our shoulders kind of go back, and we're just in a very purposeful body position. And those back muscles, they stay contracted so that we just have this like get up and go, we're going with purpose. And the red light reflex is the opposite. We're not open. We close more in on ourselves. We contract our stomach muscles, our shoulders kind of come in on themselves. We're kind of pulling in to protect our organs. Our head usually comes forward just a little bit. And these are exaggerated. So, I mean, you could be in a much lesser holding state than the full stress state. And our head comes forward a little bit so that we're not getting as much oxygen and nutrients and energy to our brain. And the evolutionary purpose of this is that we're not thinking rationally. We're not able to think out a moment because we want to be ready to react to a moment. We want to be able to instinctively react because our body thinks we're in a fight, flight, or freeze state. And that green light reflex, everything's going back. Both of them, we can end up having a bit of both of these. We usually have some eustress, we have some de-stress throughout our life. And our body starts to take on multiple holding patterns if we are in these states on a regular basis. And the green light reflex can cause a lot of strain in our back and our hips. So if we're constantly having these back muscles contracted, pushing out our stomach a little bit, you'll notice that you probably have a lot of lower back pain, hip issues, and strain in any of those areas can cause other strains in your knees, in the bottoms of your feet, in your ankles, the backs of your legs, sciatic pain. So having these muscles constantly contracted can, even though it's eustress, it's positive stress, not being aware that our muscles are contracted all the time can really cause a lot of stress in parts of our body. When we relax these muscles, it often, if we're a person that's constantly on the go, constantly needing to get stuff done, can almost feel like we're slumped here. And when in reality, this is kind of how our spine should be in most situations. It's a nice neutral state. Our vertebrae are stacked on top of each other. We're not using back muscles to push our vertebrae out. They're just nice and stacked right on top of each other. And we're not using a lot of muscles right here. And we're able to get a lot done in this state versus this state. In our red light reflex, where we're contracted more like this, and our stomach muscles are usually contracted in this, like I said, our head goes forward a little bit, sending less nutrients, less oxygen to our brain. We might not notice that we're doing this as much as either. If we're not really aware of our body on a regular basis and we're just kind of going with our head and all the things that need to be done and thinking about the future and worrying thinking about the past. I mean, all of these things, we're staying up in our head and we're not really aware what our body is doing. So when we're in this state, what we might notice is that we get a lot of tension headaches because our head is pulling forward on these muscles. We might notice we get a lot of neck aches and shoulder aches, and our shoulders are tight and our neck might be tight. We might notice that we have a harder time taking deep breaths. We don't necessarily take these deep breaths that we're constantly told are beneficial for our nervous system. We might have digestive issues. So having those stomach muscles contracted, our digestion could go in either direction, and we might notice that, you know, we have a lot of indigestion. We might have some diarrhea. We might have more, we're using those stomach muscles without realizing it. So in our more somatic practices, so somatic just means body awareness. It's getting into the body, out of the head, into the body. And we're using practices, slow, grounded practices, to be super mindful of what we're contracting, what we're releasing in our body. So releasing muscles that might be in a regular holding pattern, starting to notice that muscles are in a holding pattern. It's what we do in my Release and Restore yoga program at wholeselfemergence.com, which you're welcome to visit. But either way, any somatic practice where you come out of your head into your body, you move slowly and mindfully in poses to see where you're contracting, and you really work to start to relax muscles and feel what it's like to be relaxed in muscles that are normally contracted. It can be so beneficial, and we can take it out of our practice in so many different ways. I had no idea that I was constantly, and I do it constantly still. It's a practice. Yoga is a practice. The somatics, getting into the body, it's a practice. Body awareness is all mindfulness. It's all a practice. But I had no idea that I was constantly in the green light. Always. My back was always contracted. And this is what I thought was like sitting up tall and sitting up straight and with purpose. And I still do it all the time. If I get excited about something, if I'm thinking a thought about something I need to do later, this does not need to be me needing to be in an active mode or doing anything. My back muscles will automatically start to contract, and I start to notice I'm going like this. And if I don't get mindful really quick, I can stay in this in a while and then start noticing that my back is really tense and my lower back is starting to have issues, and, you know, I'm feeling sensitive in many areas. And I have to go in constantly, drop back down to my body. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm contracting those muscles again. Relax those muscles. I can still think these exciting thoughts without having to go into that eustress mode. And then same, I notice that when I am thinking anxious thoughts, when I am watching the news, or if I'm on social media, I try to stay away from some of this stuff just because I notice that I start to contract in on myself a little bit, and that's just my other holding pattern. So those were just the two stresses that we regularly come up against, and then the red light and green light reflexes. And what we'll be using our Release and Restore yoga practice constantly is to release a lot of that tension that we cause from those reflexes. So deeper in those deeper tissues in our hips and our lower back, opening up our chest, but then also bringing so much awareness, guidance and awareness into our body to recognize just what's happening inside of us. So thank you so much for joining me. And please like and subscribe if you found this information useful. Thank you.